50 points.
Certainly that is the rumour over here, that either at 8:30, 9 o'clock Monday morning New York time, or perhaps during the week, and perhaps a symbolic before the opening is saying, here's a cut. Whether that will be concerted across the other major, the European Central Bank and the Bank of England, I think remains to be seen. But if things did look like they needed a helping hand, I'm sure that is a possibility. I wouldn't rule it out.
Robert Miller, our thanks to you, and good day to you there in London. Colleen?
Well, the whole world will be watching New York's Open on Monday, that's for sure. But let's return you now to New York and the man who's keeping his own nightly vigil over the scene for us, for you. That's our Garrick Utley. Garrick?
Yes, thank you, Colleen. One little item, perhaps it doesn't loom that large compared to all the other things that have happened this week in New York City, but an indication about the level of anxiety and where this anxiety comes from. It's reported now that among those who feel most vulnerable about going to their place of work are those New Yorkers who work in the Empire State Building. Why? Well, perhaps you'd understand this from common logic. It is now the largest standing, the tallest building in Manhattan, once that the World Trade Center is no longer there. Perhaps a certain perverse, pessimistic logic at work there. Let's go down now to Gary Tuchman, who is in Lower Manhattan, and he's going to bring us up to date on what's happening close to where the disaster occurred. Gary.
Garrick, you just brought up a sad but very interesting point. For 28 years, the World Trade Center has been the largest building in New York City. As a matter of fact, for a short time, it was the tallest building in the world. And the Sears Tower in Chicago was built. It became the second tallest building in the world. So New Yorkers have known this to be the tallest building in New York City for so many years. The Empire State Building, which used to be the tallest building in the world, used to be the tallest building in New York City, obviously, is once again the tallest building in New York City because of this diabolical reason. Now, it's been exactly 90 hours since all hell broke loose here in Lower Manhattan. This is where the World Trade Center used to stand. Now, fire continues to burn, smoke continues to rise, and workers continue to be on the scene trying to find survivors. But the search is not really bearing fruit. Not one survivor has been found over the last 2 days. Terribly disappointing to the rescue workers who are on the scene, and totally heartbreaking to the family members who are waiting for any news whatsoever. 4,700 people are still missing. We come to you right now from Greenwich Street, and this street is only open to emergency workers, so all through the evening and all through these early morning hours, cars have been coming down, fire trucks, ambulances, sanitation trucks, everyone participating in this search. This area is a ghost town, totally closed to the public. There isn't even electricity in many of these buildings right now. It's just open to the emergency workers and to members of the news media like us. Once again, it was 90 hours ago that terrorists commandeered two planes. One hit number 1 World Trade Center, the other one hit number 2 World Trade Center. Number 1 World Trade Center, by the way, the first one hit was the same World Trade Center tower that was bombed back in 1993. Testimony came out during that trial of the bombers of the World Trade Center that they wanted to knock down the entire building. And sadly and tragically, that's what happened this time. We want to talk about one other thing before we go back to you, Garrick. The workers who are on the scene, there's between 1,000 and 2,000 at all times. It is a very dangerous job. And the reason we can directly tell you it's so dangerous is because during the Oklahoma City bombing, one of the emergency workers who went in there was Rebecca Anderson. She was a nurse, and she was hit in the head by a chunk of steel while she was in the building. She later died in the hospital. She is one of the 168 victims of the Oklahoma City bombing. Garrick, back to you.
Gary, one quick question here, something I think may be baffling some of our viewers. We saw a shot just a moment ago that the smoke is still rising there over the site of the attack last Tuesday. Several days later there, how is it possible these fires are still burning? Where are they? Are they so hidden that the fire department can't get to them, or are they simply not that important and they're being ignored? There we see the smoke.
Garrick, there is just so much rubble. I mean, keep in mind, the Mayor Giuliani said today that over 10,000 tons, which is 20 million pounds of rubble, has been taken away. But it's barely making a dent. The pile, the rubble, looks almost exactly the same as it did a few days ago, and that gives you an idea of how much rubble is there. So the rubble it's 75 feet high at points. It is so deep and so wide that fires just break out in all different areas, and it's a lot of work to try to put them out. And once they put them out, another one sprouts up, and that's what happens. There are constantly fires, and that's creating all the smoke behind me that hasn't gone away in the 90 hours since this tragedy occurred.
Thank you very much, Gary Tuchman on the scene there. Now back to Colleen in Atlanta.
All right, Garrick, thanks very much. Over to Jim.
Well, all across the United States, Colleen, flags popping up everywhere. You can see them in cars, you can see them outside homes. They're prominently displayed as a show of support for the victims and a sign of unity among Americans. Professional athletes also doing their part. Major League Baseball busy adding flags to the sides of baseball caps. They'll be worn by all players on Monday when the games will be played for the first time since the attack. Well, from Miami to Minnesota, from Burbank to Boston, the people of the United States have been lighting candles to remember those who perished. Let's take a glimpse at just a few of those vigils.
God bless America.
I think this is just one sign of the unity and the solidarity. And it's nice to know that what you feel, the pain and the hurt, is shared by a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are trying to make some good out of this. So I think it's important to share that with everybody.
The mountains, to the prairies, to the ocean.
Young and old and people of all persuasions, and it's fantastic to see that we all have one thing in common, that we love this country.
America, my home, sweet home. God bless America.
It just felt really horrible, this whole situation. I think it was a big shock to everyone, and I think everyone was stunned at first, and I think we're all doing the best we can.
I think it's absolutely amazing that the government is taking such a unified stance towards all of this. I mean, to see Mayor Giuliani, Hillary Clinton, and Governor Pataki all standing side by side in unity, I truly feel that they and President Bush are giving this city a strength that it has never seen before.
It has been an anxious time, though, for many Arab Americans and Muslims in the United States, many of them adding their voices to the national chorus. Muslims have been gathering in mosques and community centers, offering prayers and raising money for victims as well. But some people, including many Afghans, worry about becoming targets for Americans' anger. CNN's Rusty Dornan has that story now from California.
Arif Armaz sold every American flag in his store in Fremont, California, a source of pride for him right now. Armaz fled Afghanistan when the Soviets invaded. He believes his native land is being unjustly blamed for terrorism the U.S. increasingly believes was the work of a man from Saudi Arabia.
No, I don't believe it is Afghani people. It's just this tourism, Osama bin Laden.
Others came here when the Taliban regime took over. Some say the world turned its back on Afghanistan when that happened, and that isolation allowed the regime to harbor Osama bin Laden.
This terrorist group that is terrorizing the world has been torturing and victimizing, massacring our people in Afghanistan. We have asked numerous times for international help, and we got none.
Mohammed Kamosh worries that Afghanis here will be blamed for the Taliban's actions. The day of the attacks, someone threw a rock at his storefront.
Maybe something happened to us, something like my kids, they go to school, they are under stress. People look at them, yeah, he's Afghan, you guys are doing that.
Friday, a holy day for Muslims. This Friday, a feeling of vulnerability. Outside the only Afghan mosque is extra security and local police patrols. While the threats have been relatively minor, there is uncertainty and unease among the Afghan community. Afghani businesses line the streets in downtown Fremont. Many here say those left in Afghanistan are for the most part the poor, brutalized by the war with the Soviets and now the repressive policies of the Taliban. Afghans here fear the talk of war.
The innocent people get killed. They should do something. They should talk with the Taliban to get that guy, you know. They shouldn't kill these people, the innocent people.
People here worry that revenge for Tuesday's attack may mean an all-out strike against a nation they feel has suffered enough. Rusty Dornan, CNN, Fremont, California.
It has been said many times in the last few days that New York is the city that never sleeps, but these days it may be truer than ever. People have been glued to their television screens all day and all night. Our Jeannie Mose has more.
If you're watching this story, you may already be hooked, horrified, yet mesmerized by planes aimed at buildings. Buildings that collapse before our very eyes over and over.
I can't really take my eyes off the TV.
And I also couldn't stand to watch TV one more minute.
Attack on America, attack on America, America under attack, whatever the networks call it.
It's addicting. I think it's addicting partly because we don't want to miss something.
Even if that something makes us sad.
I cry a lot when I hear the stories and see all the people.
If anybody see my daughter.
I think people feel guilty if they're not watching it. You know, that they feel in some way that they're betraying those that have really suffered.
Do you feel like you're participating because you're watching? That's an illusion.
What's not an illusion is the way the coverage tends to unite viewers in a shared experience, even if what's shared is sorrow. It's easy to OD on crisis TV.
I don't want to watch it all the time, just because it kind of deadens the mind.
So how much is too much? We asked Dr. Jimmy Holland, head of the Department of Psychiatry at Sloan Kettering.
Everybody should ask themselves, is this making me feel better or feel worse? And if it's making you feel worse, then you probably should limit it. I'm going to watch an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon.
And turn it off.
When you get a feeling of being unable to think about anything else.
You know what I felt when I saw the smoke coming around the buildings? I thought, this is a movie.
But these are no special effects.
That's the image. That's the image that's going to be burned into our brains for the rest of our lives.
Burned into our brains from every angle.
Then there's this guy standing there, and then all of a sudden it just rips right through it. Absolutely powerful.
But I could look at that image a million times, and I still find it mesmerizing.
I know. It's an intimacy with disaster.
Disaster seen from the safe side of the screen. Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
And those images going through a lot of people's minds today. We're going to actually leave you this hour with some of the images from today's memorial service at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C.
Better images of the many services on this day of prayer and remembrance in the United States and around the world.
Those of us who are gathered here, Muslim, Jew, Christian, Sikh, Buddhist, Hindu, all people of faith, want to say to this nation and to the world that love is stronger than hate, and that love lived out in justice will in the end prevail.
Today we gather to be reassured that God hears the lamenting and bitter weeping of Mother America, because so many of her children are no more.
With broken and humble hearts, and with tears in our eyes, we turn to you, our Lord, to give us comfort. Help us in our distress. Keep us together as people of diverse faiths, colors, and races. Keep our country strong for the sake of the good and righteousness.
My prayer today is that we will feel the loving arms of God wrapped around us, and will know in our hearts that He will never forsake us as we trust in Him.
On this National Day of Prayer,